Why All of the Night? Because it is about a book that takes place a lot from midnight to 8 o'clock in the morning. Midnight. The book is quite autobiographical, not 100%, but perhaps 95%. And it's the story of a young man who came down to our beautiful capital city to work at a press agency. It's in the book. It's referred to as the Universal Press Wire or something along those lines. It's actually the French-based press agency, AFP, which is one of the great press agencies, along with, of course, Associated Press, the moribund United Press International. The Russians, of course, had TASS, which had its own biases in those days. Now, of course, what's that?
Don't forget ANSA.
ANSA. I forget the ANSA. I'm sorry, and ANSA, of course. And there are a few other press agencies. Of course, most countries have their own, but the French press agency is a contender. And of course, nowadays we take the 24/7 news cycle for granted through CNN and other objective outlets such as Fox News and MSNBC and all that. But for the longest time, of course, press agencies had to work 24/7, and it was the first job that the protagonist of this book, similar to me, Albert Nostrand, obtains, and he's quite delighted. And at first, he's a little bit trained during the day, and all kinds of things are happening. It's the midst of the Iran-Contra hostage crisis. Ronald Reagan was just elected. That sort of thing. So he's in the midst of all that, and it's terribly exciting. But all of a sudden, a certain other reality sets in, and it's the reality of the night, because he has been selected to do the graveyard shift. And while he's a bit of a night owl, the graveyard shift does get to be a little bit old. He's a little bit coached and advised by someone to say, don't overdo it. Write a couple of stories per night, and you'll be all set. But Albert gets bored, and he's a little bit ambitious, and one of the big events at the time, of course, as I just mentioned, was the Iran-Contra crisis, when things were always on the verge of possibly bursting and happening, and as you know, finally things did happen. But Albert stumbles on a few things, and he also wants a big event beyond the Iran-Contra hostage crisis, and the big event does materialize, and it's the worst possible event he could possibly imagine, and that is when John Lennon up in New York is shot. I know I look like I'm 25 years old, but what happened? It was quite some time again, and he eagerly writes a lot of copy about that. But it seems that the people who hired him had other plans. There's somebody else in the background, and so again, things do not pan out quite as well as he anticipated, which in a way he likes, because doing the graveyard shift is a terribly lonely activity. It's basically working four nights a week, and then trying to recoup on weekends. And Friday is sort of a wasted day, and then Saturday and Sunday come along, and he's a young lad straight out of college, and he would like to meet a young lady. But of course, when the opportunity materializes, he tells these young women, when they ask him, what do you do? He says, well, the graveyard shift. And that is very, of course, unappealing for the average young lady. Some of whom tell him, well, you should meet a nurse and that sort of thing. But anyhow, long story short, the graveyard shift. Sorry, I'm a little bit nervous and occasionally prone to a little bit of Tourette. Anyhow, so he looks for another job, and a lot of the book is devoted to sort of finding another job, sort of finding himself, finding a young lady, and in a way he does find one, but she is sort of ruthless and cruel, you know, as young ladies could be back then. You know, mercifully things have changed radically, and women have become perfect, and well, men, of course, keep on going downhill. But c'est la vie. So anyhow, that's the book in a nutshell, in a very big nutshell. So there's yes, there's a little bit of romance, but a lot of it pivots around journalism. And you know, back in the 1980s, and it is a slice of life that is very emblematic of that time. Allow me to read a couple of paragraphs from the first chapter, which is called Ronald Reagan's. Not Ronald Reagan, but Ronald Reagan's. Although it was a couple of minutes before 7, post-meridian, Connecticut Avenue, one of the capital city's main arteries, was already dead and confusing. I was walking around in circles, or imperfect rectangles rather, trying to locate the ABC News building. It was there a second ago, now where? Mystery and Gumball. Mystery and Gumball, of course, is a literary translation from the French. It's an expression. In French they say mystère et bout de gomme, mystery and Gumball. So
it's very esoteric.
Like that. This was infuriating. Not that I was particularly interested in it, but it would serve as a landmark. I was also surprised not to see CBS or NBC around the corner. So for the third time I walked up the smooth incline whose stately buildings, some of them, and the blonde Mayflower Hotel in particular surely qualifies, and sporadic elms were still lightly brushed by the late afternoon sun as in a Monet painting. And the footnote reads, one would prefer alluding to an artist of lesser renown, but Monet just fits the mood. But no ABC building to be found, no opportunity to see the first 3 letters of the Roman alphabet, or catch a peep of a famous anchorman like Donald Sampson, or woman like, but just back in the fading ultraviolet rays, or perhaps grab a bite to eat, because my stomach was beginning to feel empty. First death, then hunger. To the left, past a store selling guitars, I spied a Ronald Reagan's, a food chain I'd never heard of before. I set foot in the District of Columbia. Now, I don't know if you all remember, but there used to be a restaurant with the same initials as Ronald Reagan's, and that still exists here and there, but it's, what is it, Alex? For 500? What is Roy Rogers? Very good. So the name, from the start, struck me as peculiar. I recall my first night wandering listlessly up Pennsylvania Avenue from George Washington University, past a triangle of grass, trees, bushes, and benches, and seeing Ronald Reagan's Family Restaurant. I avoided it. The word family scared me away. It sounded as though it would be expensive, and I was not sure whether I had secured the job at the Universal Wire Service, the world-renowned UWS. They could have called the eatery Audie Murphy, or chosen among the dozens of famous cowboys or actors playing cowboys. Roy Rogers would have been good. Although one assumes the jolly chap not to be exactly left of center, there's a less political ring to it than Ronald Reagan, the actor turned governor of California, and now in the final leg of the presidential race, the results of which were around the corner, like the restaurant. Anyhow, so it goes. It's there are a lot of illustrations as well in this book. This is one by yours truly representing a newspaper salesman of yours. It's much better in color, but in black and white it's gives you. Well, thank you very much. And What's that? The cover is mine as well, yes. Thank you, thank you. And a picture of your hack at the typewriter of yesteryear. So, and of course, even a drawing showing the Gipper and his predecessor driving the tractor, and a mullah being torn between the two.
Oh no, I love my jacket.
Yeah, so all the drawings, all the illustrations are mine. So,
in other words, you don't like the literature, you can appreciate the illustration.
absolutely, absolutely. Although a very hard challenge to meet. But, right. So this is a tentative drawing of John Lennon back in the day.
It's okay.
I try to integrate actually drawings that I had done back then, and with a couple of drawings yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. This is perhaps the end of the formal part. I had a copy of this book with all kinds of bookmarks, but I left it, of course, at home. So I had to ad-lib a little bit, like the jazz musician I shall never be. But you can make this now interactive.
Is this novel relate to the other previously?
Okay, the question is, does this novel relate to the other two? Yes, it is sort of a saga. The saga of Albert Nostrand and his family and friends and all that. So, yes, this is the direct sequence to Pop the Plug. A few years elapsed between Pop the Plug and The Big Jiggity, which is the first novel. And, yeah, this relates, but although it relates, it is not necessary to have read the two other books to read this one.
Okay. Yeah.
So Michael, does this complete the story cycle, or will there be a fourth?
I'm working on a fourth. There's a prequel, as they say nowadays, that's already been written, and a few years down the road. So, and I have a lot of ideas, but other jobs get in the way. And, yeah, exactly. And these are slender slices of life from like the early '80s. And so I'll be dead before I can catch up. But so take advantage of now since I'm alive and well. And,